sorry to hold you up. A couple announcements to make this morning, or a couple issues that I'll seek to address. The first of which is related to, there's been a lot of discussion over the past couple months, and certainly since the budget was introduced, I guess back in March, about the prospect of having a homestead exemption in Philadelphia for the first time. There's been discussion about this in the past. I think everyone knows that we're seeking formal authorization from the state, which we must. Philadelphia is the only county in the Commonwealth that is not a participant in the homestead exemption program. That dates back to sometime in 1998. And so we're seeking to be a part of such a program, have the authorization, and then legislatively create such a program here in Philadelphia. And there's legislation pending about that. And I'll get into the details as to why we're making this particular announcement today, but an announcement nonetheless. I think, as everyone knows, that notwithstanding even some of these harsh economic times, home ownership is still a major part of the American dream. Many, many people still want to buy a home, live in it, raise their families, and help stabilize communities all across this great city. And we want to make sure that Philadelphians also have the opportunity to take advantage of potential real estate tax relief, which will make home ownership a little easier for many residents and homeowners in Philadelphia. This relief is currently available, as I mentioned, in every other county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And there is a bill pending in Harrisburg that will make that relief available in Philadelphia. I've offered legislation to City Council through the budget process, asking them to approve an exemption that is at least at the $15,000 level. There are discussions going on that may, in fact, raise that number, but we wanted to start somewhere and start at a decent number. And what that really means is that the taxable assessment portion of a homeowner's property would be reduced by at least $15,000. And so let me give a very, very simple example. If your home was assessed at $100,000 and you sign up for the homestead exemption, at least as it's currently proposed, your actual value upon which we would base ultimately your tax bill would be on an $85,000 assessed value, not the $100,000 assessed value. And let me also make clear that should you participate in this program, and we want to encourage all homeowners to do so, the actual value of your home is not reduced in any way, shape, or form. That is merely for tax calculation purposes. Now, these are real savings for homeowners here in Philadelphia. There are no income requirements that we've proposed. There are no age limitations that we've proposed either. And there really is no reason why every homeowner in the city shouldn't sign up for this. You just need to own and live in your home that you're applying for this relief for in the first place. And so if, for example, your home is also a business and you manage a store on the first floor and live on the second floor, you are still eligible and will receive the homestead exemption for the portion of the property that you live in. Now, if it is a rental home, a vacation home, or not your primary residence, that particular property is not eligible to receive the homestead exemption. This legislation is a great opportunity for all Philadelphians to realize some real estate property tax relief, but you need to sign up now. The enrollment period will begin today, June 1st, and extend through July 31st. That is 60 days. And after that time, unfortunately for this year, it will be too late to enroll. Your exemption would then be reflected in the assessment notice that you will receive later on this year in the fall. If you want to sign up right now, and I was on the city's website this morning, it is big and quite visible on the front page of the city's website at www.phila.gov. It is on the front page. You cannot miss it. Soon the city will be mailing applications to homeowners later on this month. It's an estimated over 500,000 mailings will go out later on this month to homeowners in Philadelphia. I want to stress again that I encourage all homeowners to apply for this exemption. It's open to everyone, regardless of age or income, and it is, in fact, tax relief for Philadelphians. Homeownership is an integral part, as I mentioned earlier, of the American dream. We want to make that dream not only a reality, but make it even easier to own a home in Philadelphia. And so out of this we say own, apply, and save. Just one brief additional message. Some in the media or others may wonder why we're announcing this today. There are a number of reasons. One, we wanted to provide as much notice and opportunity for citizens to apply as possible. Second, we're driven by some dates and timing that one is statutorily set, and two is a function of how do you get these notices out in a relatively short period of time to over 500,000 homeowners. So let's start with the first date and then walk ourselves back, and you'll see why we're starting today. We are required by state law to send out any change of assessment notices to homeowners and property owners at least 10 days before October 1st. And so that takes you to the date of September 21st. This is the date by which we must get out in the mail and have received any change of assessment notice by property owners. On September 7th, which is 2 weeks before September 21st, we need to send data to mail those change assessment notices to the printer. The printer needs a minimum of 2 weeks from receiving that data file to then get the letters personalized, printed, the correct information in those letters, and we estimate that we'll be mailing upwards of 550,000 letters that need to be sent out during that 2-week period of time. In order to be able to do that, we then back up to August 7th, which is a month, of course, before September 7th. The Office of Property Assessment's computer system needs to go into what we call a lockdown process in order to make sure that they process all the values and incorporate the applications from the homestead exemption so that they give the proper calculation to those homeowners and that their assessment notice that they receive in September is correct. And they need about a month to do that work. And so therefore, we need a filing date of July 31st, which is 1 week before August 7th, in order for those applications to all be received. We'll have 1 week to process them all, to get them to the Office of Property Assessment by August 7th, for them to get that information to calculate it and get it over for mailing by September 7th, and then out the door to be received by September 21st, which again is in accordance with the 10-day notice requirement prior to October 1st. If you take all of that into consideration, you see that we end up with a filing deadline of July 31st, and we want to give 60 days of opportunity for people to file, and therefore 60 days from July 31st, of course, is June 1st. That's why we're making this announcement today. That's why the city's website has the information. You can download an application, and I've actually talked to at least one person who has already filed. That's the story. And we just want to make sure that all citizens have the opportunity and a decent amount of time to file the application, get the information in, and go from there. Lastly, let me thank a couple folks who have worked diligently to make this happen. That would be Marissa Waxman, Anna Wallace-Adams, and Desiree Peterkin-Bell, and some really great folks over at Central Duplicating that helped with producing these materials in a very, very short period of time. But they are very, very nice. With that, I'll be glad to take any questions from the news media.
Dollars, how much is this $15,000 worth to the taxpayer? In other words, if you take your $100,000 example, if they go down to $85,000, how much is that going to be in tax savings?
Until we have I think the correct answer to that is until we actually have that assessment notice that we can send to that homeowner in the fall, it's not possible for me to answer that question. But I think the simple math here is that an assessment on $100,000 is going to be higher than an assessment on $85,000 of property value, and there is a savings. And so whatever the savings is, at least where I come from in West Philly, savings is savings. And if you have an opportunity to get that savings, we want to encourage folks to apply.
Mailings, do you anticipate any broadcast or billboard?
We are hopefully anticipating that we'll at least be able to announce this 2, 3, 4 times a day on KYW. So thank you for making that offer. We plan a series of PSAs for both radio and television. We expect to have similar materials on the city's public access television station, Channel 64. We will have printed materials soon in a variety of public facilities. And so, for instance, at all of our libraries, the materials about homestead exemption will be available. Many other public buildings will have all of these materials. We'll get them out, of course, to elected officials. We plan to do our best, quite honestly, to bombard the city and bombard people with this information multiple times so that everyone knows that this relief is available. We will use, of course, social media as well. We want to ask our civic organizations, our religious community, our business community to get information to their constituents, their parishioners, to their employees, and certainly we plan information blasts to our own public employees. We will utilize every possible mechanism we can to get this information out as far and wide and multiple times as we can. And thank you again for the generous offer from KYW.
From a political standpoint, the fact that you're starting now, have you made that clear to the state lawmakers, the heads of the caucuses, so they're not bothered in any way, or might not view this as presumptuous to get this started now?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried. I would hope not. I mean, it's an opportunity for people to save money. You know, I think regardless of what political camp anybody might be in, I've yet to meet an elected official who wasn't interested in helping his or her constituents save money. So I think there is really no politics to this, or I'm hopeful that there won't be. We still need, obviously, legislation to pass, but we don't want the citizens of Philadelphia. I'm eternally optimistic about this and many other things that we're working on. We at least want to provide the opportunity to apply for something that is good, and I get the impression that at least on homestead exemption, there seems to be a fairly decent consensus around the idea. We'll have further discussions about the actual level, but I don't know that there's anyone who is at this point debating whether we should have one or not. I think the discussion is around how much.
Specifically to any potential backlash that you're starting it now prior to legislative approval.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand the question. I would hope not, and again, when you walk through that timeline that I laid out, I mean, it's the only reason that we're starting now is because we want to make sure that should things happen in a positive way in terms of the legislation, whether here on the ground or in Harrisburg, that we took every possible step we could to make sure that Philadelphians had that opportunity. And I would hope that folks would really understand that.
And the only qualification for this is that it be your primary residence.
Primary residence, yes.
You alluded to potential for some property owners, some gray area if they have both primary residence and a retail component. How is that adjudicated?
Well, if it is your primary residence, but say, for instance, it's kind of what we might call in Philly kind of a classic storefront property. So you've got maybe a mixed-use property, commercial on the ground floor, residential on the second floor. Then you get into kind of some proportionality because the homestead exemption is about the living residential space as opposed to the commercial space. So, I mean, I hate to kind of totally go off script with an example, but I mean, if the square footage, I guess, were the same, first floor, second floor, then, you know, I guess in theory at least it would be half.
But if a person in that situation simply stipulates that 100% of the property is their residence, and in effect, you know, kind of fudges it, how does the city...
Are you saying, you mean lying?
If it's a gray area, some might say they don't understand. Maybe they're not intentionally lying.
Maybe they're not clear that they don't live in the commercial space where the groceries are? Is that what you're suggesting?
How do you catch them?
I think if we had a concern about that, we'd probably, for instance, I mean, there are a couple things. If for some reason a red flag went up about a particular property, it would be my expectation that having gone, the fact that we're going through the reassessment process and we've had people out in neighborhoods all across the city, that, you know, our records might indicate that this is, you know, a partial commercial property or something like that. Obviously, a site visit could come about. There is always that people could just be honest. You know, I'd like to think that most folks in the city actually are. Most people do follow the rules. So, I mean, I think we can figure that out.
It would be the OPA cross-checking.
It could be OPA, it could be revenue. I mean, there could be any number of signs that will, red flags that will pop up that indicate that, you know, this is not, you know, kind of your classic row house building. If, you know, maybe there's a business privilege, we don't call it that anymore, a business license associated with that particular property. We would kind of wonder, in most instances, you know, why would there be a business license attached to a property, and maybe that sends up a red flag as well. Are you trying to anticipate a problem that you might be running into personally?
Just being skeptical.
Yeah. I understand that you're checking.
Can you characterize, now on June 1st, the prospects for legislative approval, not just of the homestead, but the other bill that Robbie's leading?
Well, Mike, I think you probably already know the answer to this question. You know, I've lived my life in such a way as to never predict, even when I was in the legislative body, never made any predictions about what might happen. We are certainly hopeful, of course, that some very positive things will happen, and continue to work with Council President and Council members to achieve a positive outcome. But I'm not going to make any predictions other than we're going to keep working hard to make sure that we get a budget done, fix the property assessment system, and certainly try to provide funding for our public education system here. Any other questions? Okay. Let me make some additional remarks with regard to activities yesterday, or I guess last night, related to schools and action taken by the district and ultimately the SRC last evening. Let me first and foremost thank the SRC for their dedication, their commitment, their diligence, openness, and ultimately their hard work in making some very, very tough decisions in adopting the FY 12-13 budget last night. I think it's fairly accurate to say, and at least starting with myself, that nobody really liked the budget that was passed yesterday. It is not a particularly great budget for kids and public school students, but it is a budget that is reflective of the current fiscal state of affairs at the school district, and it represents what has been called for, which is a shared sacrifice by everyone involved in order to financially stabilize the school district and put it on a path that will lead to a system of great schools across the city. It's further evidence that in the coming year, all of us must work together so that we never have to pass or be subject to this kind of budget again. And I want to be very, very clear in my comments about this. This is not a criticism of the SRC. Certainly, we've had the same experience over the last 4 years, and especially 3 to 4 years ago in 2008 and 2009, we had to propose and ultimately pass budgets that we didn't like. There were any number of actions that I had to take that I was not particularly proud of. But cuts nonetheless had to be made. Strong steps needed to be taken in order to stabilize the city's finances, and to some extent we are benefiting today as a result of very, very tough and strong actions that we took a number of years ago. And unfortunately, the same circumstance has come to the school district. But let's talk about some of the things in a more positive way that the SRC and the district did do last night. This budget is also a very clear statement that the School Reform Commission and the district are attempting to protect core educational programs and are, in essence, almost erecting a firewall around key education programs. So let me talk about those. Early education programs, full-day kindergarten, reduced class size from K to 3, as well as CTE programs, all being protected as a result of this budget. In addition, alternative education programs, early English language learner programs, as well as special education programs, all being protected in this budget. The school district is also seeking to protect school budgets, individual school budgets, with the budget that they passed, and trying to protect them from further cuts beyond what has already been cut in the past couple years. Art and music programs will be maintained at current levels with no anticipated further cuts to those programs. Police services and nursing services will be maintained at current levels with no anticipated further cuts. We must protect these school budgets from any further cuts from what the district and our individual schools have already experienced. Again, this is a shared sacrifice. Taxpayers, employees, management. And we still face major challenges to reduce spending. The district is anticipating for next fiscal year still a $218 million budget gap. The SRC made clear that this budget is clearly a transitional spending plan in order to place the district on financially stable ground by 2014. And let's not forget that in the current year, the SRC and the school district cut nearly $400 million from their operations budget and made an additional $300 million in reductions in one-time savings. Of course, as the question was asked earlier, we are working with City Council, Council President, and the leadership and all the members to try to provide additional funding in the form of $94 million to the school district. We're also in conversation, of course, with members of the General Assembly on ways to restore some of the proposed cuts in funding to the school district. I believe, and we believe, that both the city and the state can and must step up with critical funding at this time. The budget passed last night is just the first step in a series of significant changes that will be required to prepare the School District of Philadelphia for a sustainable future. We know that we need to reduce the number of buildings in the school district's inventory. We know we need to reorganize the way we support schools so that educational decision-making is closer to the classroom, that principals and teachers are more empowered to make the decisions that need to be made because learning ultimately takes place in a classroom. And teachers and parents and principals, and the whole community here in Philadelphia must be at the center of this organized and reorganized system, because that's where the real difference is made in student learning. And so it was a tough circumstance last night. The school district is being diligent, they're being mindful, making tough decisions that unfortunately need to be made. But we should do all that we can to make sure that we never, ever find ourselves in this kind of situation or circumstance again, and do all that we can to make sure that children and teachers in the classroom have as much support as possible to ensure that young people can learn, that they are safe, and that they can go on and become productive Philadelphians and help the city be the great place that we want it to be. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you all very much.